Understanding Migration was conceived in response to numerous requests from educators and curriculum specialists concerning the presentation and discussion of issues related to human migration in the social studies classroom. What are the reasons that large groups of people have found themselves moving from place to place? What effects does this have? And most importantly, how can such a fluid and nebulous concept be presented in a classroom in an easy-to-follow manner with clear lesson objectives and outcomes? Regional case studies were chosen to address these and other essential questions. Where possible, we have used primary source documents to present the information in each case study. If you are carrying out building work personally, it is very important that you understand how the building regulatory system and material applies to your situation, as you are responsible for making sure that the work complies with the building regulations. If you are employing a builder, the responsibility will usually be theirs, but you should confirm this at the beginning. You should also bear in mind that if you are the owner of the building, it is ultimately you who may be served with an enforcement notice if the work does not comply with the regulations. Some kinds of building projects are exempt from the regulations. However, generally, if you are planning to carry out building work as defined in Regulation 3 of the Building Regulations, then it must comply with the building regulations.
Land reclamation has been carried out along the coast of Tokyo Bay since the Meiji period. Areas along the shore with a depth of fewer than 5 meters are simplest to carry out landfills, and sand from the floor of Tokyo Bay is used for these projects. The topography of the shoreline of Tokyo Bay differs greatly from that of the Pun period due to ongoing land reclamation projects. Tokyo Bay includes about 249 square kilometers of reclaimed land area in 2021. Aggregate household waste production is enormous in Greater Tokyo. There is little room for traditional garbage disposal sites. Waste is rigorously sorted household. Much of it is turned into ash and further recycled into Bay landfill.
A conventional sales are when the home is owned outright or the seller owes less on the mortgage than fair market value. Conventional sales involve quicker transactions between both parties, unlike foreclosures, short sales and probate sales. We typically recommend conventional sales for our buyers, especially first-time home buyers, to help them avoid the complications they could run into when dealing with distressed properties or probate sales. For a majority of buyers who are looking to purchase and move into their dream home as soon as possible, conventional sales are the way to go. Oftentimes, distressed properties can take many months for the seller's bank to approve an offer or for a court date to be set in the case of a probate sale.
In every recession, marketers find themselves in poorly charted waters because no two downturns are exactly alike. However, in studying the marketing successes and failures of dozens of companies as they've navigated recessions from the 1970s onward, we've identified patterns in consumers' behavior and firms' strategies that either propel or undermine performance. Companies need to understand the evolving consumption patterns and fine-tune their strategies accordingly. During recessions, of course, consumers set stricter priorities and reduce their spending. As sales start to drop, businesses typically cut costs, reduce prices, and postpone investments. Marketing expenditures in areas from communications to research are often slashed across the board, but such indiscriminate cost-cutting is a mistake.
Secure financial messaging services provider SWIFT said today that it has expanded the GPI Tracker system to help banks track their global transactions at all times, keeping full vigil on the payments activity. Extension of its GPI Tracker will cover all payment instructions sent across the network, SWIFT said in a statement. The introduction of the end-to-end transaction reference in all payment instructions will be effected through the mandatory annual standards update in November 2021. SWIFT GPI improves customer experience by increasing speed, transparency, and automatically provides status updates to all GPI banks involved in any GPI payment chain, it said.
The Knowledge Challenge invites proposers to submit proposals for research activities aimed at improving our basic understanding of entrepreneurs and the levers, tools, and methods that can advance entrepreneurship in the United States. The Knowledge Challenge is open to proposers conducting research in universities and academic institutions, laboratories, companies, nonprofit organizations, and as individuals. Collaborations between academic researchers and entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship support programs, and other entrepreneurial ecosystem builders are welcome. The Knowledge Challenge may grant up to $400,000 annually for project teams, up to $150,000 annually for individual researchers, including hiring contract research assistants, and up to $30,000 annually for students or student teams or doctoral researchers.
Plastic domes can be produced from a quality plastic called plexiglass. Its qualities are closer to glass. Its light permeability doesn't change with time. Its surface is hard and smog and dust do not stick to or bake onto the surface. Each rain completely rinses it, making it self-cleaning. The surface is scratch-resistant against flying dust in strong wind. It has excellent optical characteristics and the ability to collect sunlight and send it down the tube. It doesn't age under UV rays or temperature changes or moisture. Its disadvantage is, however, a higher price. Some producers don't use a dome, but instead, use a roof window to which they then attach a sun tunnel tube.
The Global Nutrition Summit will take stock of commitments made to date, celebrate progress toward global goals on nutrition, and announce new commitments to accelerate the global response to malnutrition. The event is open to governments, civil society, multilateral agencies, private foundations, and companies. Decade of decline, the recent news that global hunger is on the rise, with the number of undernourished people increasing from 777 to 815 million in 2021, signals the urgent need for action. During a time of political change around the globe, this event is an opportunity for world leaders to make pledges and commit to upholding prior ones.
You are quite satisfied with the job and your company is quite happy with your deliverables. However, all this can change almost overnight if you do not look into that major aspect of professional life, progress. Make sure that you enhance your qualities at least once a year. Also, make sure that you are constantly of enhancing your academic knowledge. Without an increase in academic knowledge as well as qualities required for the job, you will find it very difficult to move your career forward.
When Everest was officially announced as the world's highest mountain in 1852, it won interest from people all over the world, and the idea of climbing all-lie way to the summit was viewed as the ultimate feat. Nobody was able to climb Everest until 1920 when Tibet first opened its borders to outsiders, and between 1920 and 1952, 7 major expeditions failed to reach the tip of Mount Everest. In fact, the mountain has a history of adversity and failure. With advances in climbing equipment in the last 10 years or so, and more experienced guides, the fatality rates have dropped from 37% in 1990% in 2004. Nonetheless, the deadliest year in Mount Everest's history was 1996, when 19 people died near the summit.
Like many things about your body, scientists and medical professionals still have a lot to learn about the process of sleep. One earlier misconception that has now been revised is that the body completely slows down during sleep. It is now clear that the body's major organs and regulatory systems continue to work actively, the lungs, heart and stomach for example. Another important part of the body also operates at night: the glands and lymph nodes, which strengthen the immune system. This is commonly why the body's natural immunity is weakened with insufficient sleep.
A constellation is a group of stars which when viewed collectively appear to have a physical proximity in the sky. Constellation boundaries and definitions as used today in Western culture, and as defined by the International Astronomical Union, IAU, were formalized in 1930 by Eugene Delport. There are 88 official constellations as recognized by the IAU, those visible in the Northern Hemisphere being based upon those established by the ancient Greeks. The constellations of the Southern Hemisphere, since invisible to the Greeks due to geographical location, were not defined until later in the early modern era.
The natural uses of bioluminescence vary widely, and organisms have learnt to be very creative with its use. Fireflies employ bioluminescence primarily for reproductive means. Their flashing patterns advertise a firefly's readiness to breed. Some fish use it as a handy spotlight to help them locate prey. Others use it as a lure. The anglerfish, for example, dangles a luminescent flare that draws in gullible, smaller fishes which get snapped up by the anglerfish in an automated reflex. Sometimes, bioluminescence is used to resist predators.
In the late 1890s, while traveling as an itinerant salesperson for the Crown Cork and Seal Company, King C. Gillette observed how his corked bottle caps were discarded immediately after opening. Nevertheless, his company turned a healthy profit and there was immense business value. Gillette soon came to realize, in a product that was used only a few times, Gillette had personal breakthrough while struggling with a straight-bladed razor, a slow, fiddly, and potentially dangerous instrument that required sharpening on a regular basis. A simple, disposable blade that could be thrown away when it dulled would meet a real need and generate strong profits, he correctly reasoned. After founding the American Safety Razor Company in 1901, his leapt from 168 blades in 1903 to 123,648 blades only a year later.
When the Tacoma Narrows Bridge opened for traffic on 1 July 1940, it was celebrated as a major engineering achievement. Even before construction was completed, however, flaws in the design were apparent. Workers sucked on lemon slices to avoid motion sickness as the structure swayed in the relatively mild wind. Engineers tried 3 different revisions during construction to address the vibration problem. Initially, tie-down cables were anchored to 50-ton bulkheads on the river banks. These were ineffective, as the cables soon detached. Then, a pair of inclined cable locks was introduced to connect cables to the bridge deck at midspan. These stayed throughout the bridge's lifespan, but did nothing to reduce vibration.
In that month or 6 weeks, the patient may feel perfectly well. He may even travel around the world spending hours packed into crowded airplanes with unsuspecting fellow passengers. That's bad enough with regular TB or with strains that are resistant to 2 or 3 mainline drugs used to treat the disease. But it's a potential public health catastrophe with a new strain called XDR-TB for extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis. The strain is impervious to a wide array of first and second-line drugs. That's why 30% or more of its victims die. And that's why people like Lawrence Gostin are rethinking what public health authorities should do about suspected XDR-TB in the weeks before the diagnosis is in.
First it was pets, then fish. Now it's poultry and pigs. The list of animals allowed to feed on insects is growing. A new EU law authorizing the use of insect protein in poultry and pig feed came into force earlier this month, a significant milestone for an keen to worm its way into the animal feed business. Since a ban on processed animal protein was imposed in 2001 in the wake of the mad cow crisis, soy and fish meal have become the bedrock of animal feed in Europe.
In that month or 6 weeks, the patient may feel perfectly well. He may even travel around the world spending hours packed into crowded airplanes with unsuspecting fellow passengers. That's bad enough with regular TB or with strains that are resistant to 2 or 3 mainline drugs used to treat the disease. But it's a potential public health catastrophe with the new strain called XDR-TB for extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis. The strain is impervious to a wide array of first and second-line drugs. That's why 30% or more of its victims die. And that's why people like Lawrence Gustine are rethinking what public health authorities should do about people with suspected XDR-TB in the weeks before the diagnosis is in.
For one thing, its ancestors changed the Earth in ways that made it possible for us to evolve, and hidden in its genetic code is a blueprint that may inspire ways to reduce our dependency on fossil fuel. But the most amazing thing is that there are 3 billion of these tiny cells on the planet, and we didn't know they existed until 35 years ago. So to tell you their story, I need to first take you way back, 4 billion years ago, when the Earth might have looked something like this. There was no life on the planet, there was no oxygen in the atmosphere. So what happened to change that planet into the one we enjoy today, teeming with life, teeming with plants and animals?